Welcome to Hidden Horizons, where we journey through the most fascinating and overlooked stories of world history. Here, gentle narration guides you through eras lost in time, from distant kingdoms to ancient civilizations. If you enjoy discovering forgotten empires and cinematic tales, please like and subscribe to support future stories. It helps us bring more of these mysteries to light and ensures you never miss an episode. In this video, we set sail into the mists of Southeast Asia, unveiling the story of Srivijaya, an empire once commanding the region's vital trade routes from the shadows of history. You will witness how maritime mastery shaped an age when the sea was a kingdom of its own. Let us immerse ourselves in a lost world where power moved with the tides and ambition drifted on the waves. Chapter 1. The Mist Beyond the Shore. Picture the coastline of early Southeast Asia. Just before sunrise, heavy mists gently roll off the quiet sea, blurring where water meets land. In these delicate hours, the world feels hushed and eternal, the horizon melting into a soft uncertainty. Here, before borders and modern nations, the ocean was a force shaping dreams and destinies. Imagine the world centuries ago. Countless islands drift like emerald jewels on the blue canvas of the sea. The warm air is thick with the scent of salt, incense and promise. Morning fog cloaks the land in mystery as fishermen set out in their wooden boats. The waves conceal secrets and stories, hinting at civilizations waiting to be revealed. This is the world that Srivijaya would soon transform. The people living along these coasts rise with the sun, following ancient rhythms tied to the tides. Villages nestle close to the jungle's edge, where the forest meets the sands. Every day, the sea brings gifts and challenges. Some see beyond their shores, sensing the potential of distant lands. It is in this gentle dawn that ambitions quietly gather, like the mists before the day. As light slowly fills the sky, outlines emerge from the haze. Trading canoes drift alongside sleek ships carved from tropical timber. The earliest traders, explorers and rulers begin their journeys on these still waters. The coastline is alive with the sounds of water lapping against wood, birds darting overhead, and soft voices echoing across the waves. In these moments, possibility hangs in the air. Yet, the scene remains shrouded in fog. There are whispers of something more beneath the everyday bustle. Unseen currents moving people, goods, and ideas between island harbours. Through the drifting dew, a sense of potential lingers, as if the world is waiting for a hidden hand to guide its fate. The sea is an open road, and Srivijaya is preparing to travel it. In this place and time, power does not rest on stone fortresses, but upon mastery of the shifting currents. Ships become the new castles, and navigators are the lords of this watery realm. Ancient compasses, star charts, and the flow of the monsoon winds become tools for expansion. Those who control the sea possess a kind of magic, moving silently through the fog, shaping destinies beyond the horizon. Communities grow where rivers meet the ocean. Harbours bustle with activity even beneath the morning mists. Amber lanterns glow as traders bargain over silk and spices, while distant sails appear and vanish on the silver sea. Before land, empires could draw borders. It was the sea that tied people together. In these hidden coves and crowded markets, a power awakens, quietly watching and learning. As the mists thin, we glimpse the first outlines of an empire Srivijaya, not revealed all at once, but emerging slowly, like the coastline itself. Its foundations are set in secrecy, ambition, and the promise of untold wealth. Over the next chapters, we will follow the rise of Srivijaya, its mysterious beginnings, its mastery of maritime trade, and its enduring echoes in the history of Southeast Asia. Chapter 2. The River That Led to the World. In the heart of Southeast Asia, the Srivijaya Empire flourished along the meeting points of sea and land. Here, rivers snaked their way through lush forests, carrying not only water but dreams of distant shores. The geography was more than just backdrop. It was the stage on which Srivijaya's story unfolded, shaped by nature's patient hand. The mighty rivers of Sumatra, wide and winding, were lifelines for the Srivijayans. These waterways connected villages, ports and markets, serving as highways long before roads were carved through forest or stone. Slow current and gentle banks made travel easy, allowing boats to glide between communities. The rivers were gifts, threading livelihoods together and turning the land into a patchwork of opportunity and promise. Beyond the rivers, narrow straits cut through the islands, channels shaped by ancient geological forces. Among them, the Strait of Malacca became the most crucial. It funneled ships between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, creating one of the world's busiest maritime corridors. Srivijaya sat at its crossroads, perfectly positioned to watch and welcome vessels travelling between continents. From the riverbanks, Srivijayan sailors set out with the tides, following currents that linked their empire to realms far beyond their forests. Each journey was a test of knowledge, reading the flowing water and the winds. Over time, the Srivijayans mastered these routes. The rivers and straits soon became extensions of their homes, as familiar and vital as the ground beneath their feet. The confluence of water routes gave Srivijaya its most valuable treasure, the ability to connect worlds. Traders from Arabia, India and China would converge where waters met. Here, emerald landscapes witnessed countless exchanges of silk, spices and stories. The rivers were threads that wove Srivijaya into the very fabric of international trade, drawing distant cultures ever closer to its shores. Walking along the banks at dawn, one would see bustling harbours come alive with activity. Markets sprouted beside the rivers, filled with goods from across the seas. Fishers, boat builders and merchants mingled under banyan trees, their voices rising above the lapping water. In Srivijaya, the river was not just water, it was the pulse of daily life, quietly shaping every moment. It was along these waterways that Srivijayan knowledge spread. Monks and travellers carried stories, ideas and teachings upriver and down. Buddhist texts arrived wrapped in silk, secreted in merchant hulls. Temples rose at river crossings, their golden spires reflecting the flow of the water. The rivers were pathways of wisdom as much as they were highways of trade and prosperity. As centuries passed, the rivers bore silent witness to change. Empires faded and new powers rose, but Srivijaya's hold on the waterways endured for generations. The people learned to read the river's moods, respecting its periods of flood and drought. Their relationship was symbiotic as they cared for the rivers cared for them, ensuring survival amid shifting tides. The landscape's natural defences also offered protection. Dense mangroves lined the river mouths, confusing would-be invaders with their labyrinthine routes. The sea itself cooperated, with its unpredictable winds and hidden shoals. These barriers shielded Srivijaya from threats, letting the empire prosper in relative peace, nestled securely between jungle and sea. In the end, the rivers and straits gave Srivijaya more than wealth or power. They offered a sense of identity, binding the people to their place in the world. Every ebb and flow echoed in their songs, festivals and prayers. For Srivijaya, to follow the river was to understand life itself, a journey that wound ever onward, connecting the past to the promise of the open sea. Chapter 3. Ships, not swords. In the world of Srivijaya, power flowed from the sea, not from the clash of swords or the thunder of cavalry. This chapter reveals how it was the fleet-sleek and swift vessels gliding across glimmering waters that formed the empire's backbone. Here, prowess did not dwell on horseback, but in the hands of those who navigated unpredictable tides and charted secret maritime highways. The Srivijayan people saw the ocean as both a provider and a challenge. Early each morning, craftsmen gathered at riverbanks and coastal inlets, shaping hulls from the sturdy timbers of the rainforest. Generation to generation, skills were quietly passed, down knowledge of binding planks with rattan, sealing seams with tree resin, and reading the stars to guide ships safely home. The shipbuilder's craft was revered, almost sacred. Unlike vast armies assembled on parade grounds, Srivijaya's strength lay in its floating networks. Each ship was a small world, home to oarsmen, navigators, traders and warriors whose lives revolved around the ebb and flow of the tides. Their routes crisscrossed the archipelago, knitting far-flung islands together into a single powerful realm, all linked by salt water and shared ambition. Constructed from local woods prized for their toughness and flexibility, these vessels could slip through narrow river mouths or ride out rough open seas with equal ease. The builders drew inspiration from the land itself. The graceful curves of the coconut palm, the strength of teak, and the flexibility of bamboo transformed into hulls able to bear spice cargoes and passengers over long, uncertain journeys. Srivijayan mariners listened to the language of the wind and watched currents that changed with the phases of the moon. They understood how every journey was shaped by tides, storms, and the migration of birds. This wisdom let them travel far beyond their home harbours. Over time, Srivijayan ships grew into symbols of connection, resilience, and the enduring bond between people and the ever-shifting sea. The launch of each new vessel was a communal event, marked by rituals to seek favour from sea spirits and ancestors. Offerings were poured at the prow, and prayers murmured into the hull before its first journey. As each ship was pushed into the water, a hush fell then, a collective cheer. The maiden voyage was a promise that empire and ocean would remain entwined, each reliant on the other's vitality. Upon the decks, Srivijayan captains traced invisible maps in their minds, remembering currents and reefs. Bright pennants often fluttered from the ship's mast markers of allegiance, but also talismans thought to ensure smooth passage. Life aboard ship was filled with routine, repairing nets, watching the water for changes in colour or shadow, and telling old tales as stars brightened above. Trade, too, relied on these agile ships. Goods flowed not by the heavy plod of merchants' carts, but across open water spices, ceramics, polished woods, and aromatic resins moving between busy ports in Sumatra, Java, the Malay Peninsula, and beyond. Srivijayan fleets turned distant lands into close neighbours, carrying with them not just cargo, but fragments of stories and new ideas. The empire's reverence for the ocean was woven into every aspect of daily life. The people believed the tides had moods, that the sea kept its own memory, and that the wisdom of ancestors travelled with every outbound craft. Stories of legendary mariner tows who faced tempests and returned with tales echoed in marketplaces and at firesides, inspiring new generations of sailors. Srivijaya's fleets became both sword and shield, not through direct battle, but through the control of passageways and the flow of commerce. By shaping the way ships moved, where they docked, and what they carried, the empire could project its influence quietly and powerfully. In these ships, Srivijaya found its true strength, forever bound to the rhythm of wind, tide, and the eternal call of the sea. Chapter 4. Roots of Wealth and Wonder. Along the coasts where warm tides meet distant lands, the sea lanes shimmered like strands of silk winding through the archipelago. With every sunrise, the ports of Srivijaya stirred awake to the clatter of ropes and foreign tongues. The air carried scents of cloves and salt, promising fortunes and tales from afar. Here, the ocean became a road, uniting worlds across distant shores. Merchants from India, Arabia, and China brushed shoulders beneath the shadow of towering ships, their cargoes stacked high with treasures. Spices filled the air with their heady perfume pepper, nutmeg, cinnamoniac, more valuable than gold. The docks pulsed with voices haggling over silk, pottery, and rare gems. Srivijaya was not merely a stop along the way, it was the place where the most precious dreams of the world converged. Every ship that arrived brought bright colours and laughter and news of distant realms. Sailors swapped tales by lantern light, telling of temples rising on green hills and storms that danced over open water. Amid the clamour, wisdom travelled alongside goods as monks, scholars, and travellers exchanged new ideas. The empire grew richer, not just in treasures, but in minds eager for stories and knowledge that arrived with every tide. Along these busy piers, it was common to hear Sanskrit prayers mingle with the clacking of wooden carts and the calls of seagulls overhead. The vibrance of the market voices, drums, laughter painted a moving tapestry of life by the water. Traders mapped fortunes in chalk upon wooden crates. For Srivijaya, each ship was a link in an endless chain, binding distant kingdoms into a living, breathing network flourishing under the watchful eyes of its harbour masters. Night fell slowly over the ports, lanterns reflecting in gentle waves, while the scent of spices deepened. The city was never silent. Drums marked the setting sun, while shipbuilders hammered late into dusk. Stories spread wherever travellers rested, blending language and legend as the empire knit together, cultures and goods. The gentle percussion of waves became the heartbeat of a people whose power flowed like the current itself, boundless and always in motion. Srivijaya's strength rested not on walls or armies, but on the mastery of the tides. Pilots guided vessels through narrow straits, their knowledge passed down by starlight and whispered tradition. The empire guarded maritime secrets as jealously as treasure, ensuring safe passage for those under its protection. Through clever diplomacy and control, Srivijaya maintained the trust of empires, weaving a tightly knit web that spanned the tropical seas. In these harbours, Buddhist monks paused to meditate, carrying scriptures in waterproof pouches. Their prayers floated between the horns and calls of bustling traders. Ideas rode the waves just as surely as cinnamon and silk beliefs from India mingling with the customs of the islands. Srivijaya became more than a market. It was a crossroads of faith, knowledge and humanity, nurturing a society where wonder sailed in alongside gold. At daybreak, the riverbanks glimmered with activity as rowers led their boats past mangroves into open water. The city's palaces overlooked the harbour, flags fluttering above granaries filled with goods from across the world. Some mornings, rare animals from Africa or China arrived, drawing curious crowds. Each visit reaffirmed Srivijaya's reputation. Reputation not only as a power, but as a place shaped by curiosity and open doors. The art of navigation thrived. Hairy maps inked on palm leaves, stories of stars told by the fireside. In every alley, the empire's sailors prepared for their next journey, repairing sails and sharing advice with newcomers. The rhythms of the harbour became the measure of time, ebb and flow, arrival and departure. Srivijaya's lifeblood was movement, connection, and the gathering of wonders from every corner of the known world. And so, Srivijaya's influence reached far beyond its shores. Every transaction, every whispered tale, and every discovery sent ripples across empires. The bustling lanes of commerce and curiosity glowed at the heart of Southeast Asia. Here, the boundaries between near and far dissolved, and the spirit of adventure grew with every new horizon glimpsed from Srivijaya's harbours, reminding us how trade once shaped the tides of history itself. Chapter 5. The Faiths upon the Water. As dawn breaks over the harbours of Srivijaya, the gentle chime of temple bells drifts across the waves. Monks in saffron robes glide through the city's misty streets, moving between grand halls and quiet shrines. Here, the reach of trade extends beyond silks and spices. It carries ideas, carving them into the very heart of the empire, where faith travels alongside fortune. Buddhism and Hinduism arrive not as storms, but as ripples gentle yet enduring. Traders pause at riverside sanctuaries to offer incense, while travellers from distant lands bow before sacred statues nestled under ancient trees. The port hums with prayers uttered in unfamiliar tongues. Every ship that docks brings new gods to the city's edge, each belief blending quietly into the pulse of Srivijayan life. The city itself is a mosaic of devotion. Ornate stupas rise above tiled rooftops, shimmering at sunrise. Along winding avenues, artisans etch lotus flowers and scenes from epic tales onto temple walls. These carvings bear witness to the stories carried by the tides from India's vast plains to the islands of the southern seas, uniting worshippers from across the realm in a shared vision of wonder and peace. Srivijaya's monarchs recognize the silent power of faith. They welcome monks and priests, sponsor the construction of monasteries, and collect rare texts from faraway lands. In the court, scholars debate doctrine as couriers bring gifts from foreign kings. This crossroads of belief is a fertile ground. Wisdom and compassion, once foreign, give flourishing roots to a new spiritual identity within the empire's embrace. At dawn, worshippers place garlands on ornate altars, their prayers rising with the fragrant smoke to the sky. The tranquil faces of Buddha carved in stone watch over merchant ships as they glide along lotus-filled rivers. Pilgrims gather at monastery gates, seeking blessings for journeys yet to come. The sacred and the worldly are inseparable here, faith interwoven with the rhythms of commerce and the tides of the sea. Temple bells mark the hours of trade as much as prayer. Gold, bronze and terracotta images of deities fill marketplace stalls, destined for distant temples on island shores. Ships leaving Srivijaya's harbours carry these offerings. Their cargo holds cradle both sacred texts and spices, statues and silk, each item whispering stories of belief to far-flung lands. The spiritual journey becomes as real as the merchant's voyage. In quiet cloisters, monks copy sutras by lamplight, their hands steady as they preserve ancient wisdom for future generations. These texts fragile and practice travel by sea, wrapped in oilcloth and hope, to distant islands where new followers await. Across the empire, the sound of chanting mingles with the clatter of dockworkers. Faith's journey unfolds with every tide, binding distant shores with silent threads of meaning. The crossroads of Srivijaya hums with exchange of goods, yes, but even more, of inspiration that transcends borders. In great stone halls, religious festivals bloom, drawing pilgrims and poets from places as diverse as Bengal, Java and Siam. The air fills with songs and stories older than memory. Here, diverse faiths mingle, finding harmony in the empire's gentle hospitality and fostering a spiritual tapestry unlike any other. Out on open water, Srivijayan ships are more than mere transports of trade. Their sails unfurl with the symbols of protection and blessing, painted by monks for safe passage. These vessels glide between worlds, the spiritual and the material carrying monks, merchants and artisans to distant lands. Each ship becomes a floating monastery of belief, spreading the quiet influence of Srivijaya's faiths as far as the winds will allow. As night falls over the port, lanterns flicker in temple courtyards, and the echo of prayers floats over the gentle swells. Srivijaya's legacy is not just in wealth or power, but in the faiths it nurtured and the art it inspired. Even now, the bells' clear songs linger on the sea breeze, a reminder that every tide carries the memory of those who believed, traded, and dreamed under these ancient skies. Chapter 6. The Watchers of the Waves. Along the mist-laden coastlines of Srivijaya, silent guardians watched over the restless sea. The navy's prowling vessels drifted through dawn fog, while networks of lighthouses flickered like patient eyes along the shores. Watchers stationed at hidden posts strained their gaze for distant sails, always vigilant for threats or traders. In the hush before the tide, you could almost feel that in times of calm, these watchers played a role as steady as the tides themselves. Lookout posts perched on craggy cliffs relayed messages by signal fires. Anchors bit into sandy inlets, offering shelter to ships in need. The navy moved with precision, weaving unseen patterns across the waters. Each guardian's presence kept the dangerous chaos of piracy at bay, their quiet courage fostering a lifeline of peace through the empire's watery arteries. Waves carried not only ships, but stories. Mariners told of storms blown in from distant horizons, and of how the navy stood unwavering against crashing tempests. When dark clouds gathered and lightning forked, it was the trained resolve of these guardians that guided vessels to safety. On such nights, lighthouses became beacons of hope, their lamps burning through rain and gloom, drawing lost sailors back from the wild, tossing dark. The art of defending Srivijaya's trade routes was a blend of subtlety and strength. Hidden anchorages allowed ships to vanish from hostile eyes, while swift boats intercepted shadowy raiders. Word of the navy's cunning spread from port to porter, quiet warning whispered along the trade winds. Under moonless skies, the shimmer of oars and the glint of spears struck fear into pirates, reminding all that the waters were both highway and fortress. In these waters, skirmishes often began as fleeting shadows unseen, until danger loomed. The navy's captains were skilled in tactics born of wind, current, and silence. They used the sea as both shield and sword, ambushing pirates and thwarting would-be invaders. Each victory was celebrated not in song, but in the unbroken calm that followed a silence during which merchants and fishermen alike gave thanks for safe passage under the watcher's gaze. Lookout towers, built from timber and stone, dotted the coastline at intervals known only to those trusted by Srivijaya. From their vantage points, watchmen read the patterns of distant sails and rolling mists. Their knowledge of the tides was legendary, and when dangers gathered, signal smoke curled upward, warning the navy. This intricate choreography of lookout and response formed a living web, invisible yet ever-present, binding the realm's vast maritime domain together. When the winds howled and the waves raged, even the boldest pirates hesitated at the edge of Srivijaya's waters. There were tales whispered of ghostly patrols gliding silently through the mist, unerring in their defence. To those unfamiliar with the coast, the lighthouses seemed to wink in secret codes. To insiders, they were the heartbeat of an empire, signalling not just danger, but the presence of order, safety, and an unwavering shield against chaos. Among the watchers, there was a deep kinship born from shared danger and ceaseless vigilance. Veterans taught the young how to read the mood of the waves and listen for the whisper of oars at midnight. Their memories held stories of fierce squalls survived and cunning ambushes turned away. If a storm took a friend or a skirmish brought injury, the network closed around its own, mourning in silence and vowing to hold fast for the empire and each other. The prosperity of Srivijaya's ports owed much to the navy's unseen hand. Traders arrived unharmed, their cargoes brimming with spices, silks and treasures from distant lands. On quiet nights, the docking of a fleet meant that markets would bustle at dawn and the empire's riches would grow. All this depended on the watchers' their sleepless nights, patient signal fires, and countless small acts of courage that kept the empire's lifeblood flowing strong. So, as you picture the mighty Srivijaya Empire, imagine its true strength rippling out from those who watched the waves. The guardians in their boats, at their posts, and within the flickering light of lighthouses, shaped the fate of Southeast Asia. Through storms and darkness, in silence or alarm, they carved a legacy upon the waterone of protection, vigilance and resilience, where every sunrise meant another victory for the watchers of the waves. Chapter 7. Rivals in the Mists. Beneath Srivijaya's golden age, currents of rivalry stirred the waters. As trade flourished and fortunes grew, envious eyes turned toward the empire's harbours and fleets. Over distant waves and through shadowed forests, whispers passed between ambitious lords. These secret murmurs would soon take shape as real threats, unseen but gathering, testing the resolve of Srivijaya's rulers as dusk descended. Fog lingered thick upon the rivers at dawn. In that silence, oared ships slid close to Srivijaya's borders, unseen by the vigilant eyes above ramparts. Not all enemies came with banners raised. Some drifted in the mist, their intentions hidden, alliances forged in secrecy far from the emperor's halls. Suddenly, a distant bell would sound, a warning that the empire's dominance was no longer taken for granted. Ambitious kingdoms plotted from neighbouring shores. From Java to the Malay Peninsula, rival sailors and warriors looked to Srivijaya's wealth with longing. They schemed to disrupt the ceaseless river convoys and city markets. It was not always direct warfare, but cunning infiltration, spies hidden within merchant bands, and sudden strikes that slipped away before dawn. Each plot tested the nerves and patience of those who defended the realm. The rivers themselves became battlegrounds, shrouded in morning haze. Srivijaya's captains learned to read the smallest ripples upon the water, always watching for signs of ambush. An unfamiliar sail, a faint paddle splash, a flicker among reeds, these could mean a swift attack or merely the approach of local traders. In these tense moments, discipline and calm command were survival itself, as the mists concealed all fates. Yet nowhere did the threat loom larger than on the open sea. The Strait of Malacca, vital artery of trade, became a theatre of silent pursuit and bold interceptions. Ambitious pirate fleets, emboldened by rival patrons, slipped through night's curtain. Sometimes vessels vanished without a trace. Other times a battered survivor returned, whispering tales of sudden battle where the fog was thickest. The empire was learning, mastery must be constantly proven. Secret alliances formed under moonlight. Envoys, cloaked and cautious, crossed narrow straits, bearing proposals of cooperation against the great Srivijaya. Promises were exchanged by flickering candlelight in distant courts, creating webs of intrigue that stretched across islands and coastlines. Some agreements unravelled before swords were drawn, others sparked coordinated attacks swift as shadows, hoping to catch the empire unprepared amidst the enveloping mists. Among the most daring rivals were seafaring peoples whose lives also depended on tides and wind. The Orang Laut, navigators of tangled estuaries, sometimes aided Srivijaya, but at other times bartered secrets to its adversaries. Loyalties shifted like the morning fog, making trust a precious and fragile thing. Their knowledge of hidden inlets and sudden squalls could tip the balance of power favouring whichever side they chose for the moment. The ruler of Srivijaya faced trials that could not be met by force alone. Diplomats negotiated uneasy truces, trading silence for peace. Gifts and honours were sent, both to placate restless neighbours and to spy upon their intentions. The court became a place of veiled language and careful manoeuvring. Every alliance could shift with the wind, requiring wisdom that matched the strength of the navy patrolling the empire's boundaries. As threats multiplied, so did the empire's resolve. Harbours were fortified, patrols increased, and navigators trained to read both stars and politics. New towers rose above the fog, sending signals across the straits. Networked outposts spread news at a whisper, connecting distant islands in a chain of vigilance. Sea and land became one, and only constant attention kept rivals from breaking Srivijaya's fragile circle of control. Tales of these testing times would echo through generations. Legends grew of warriors who vanished with the morning dew, of wise rulers whose plans outwitted a dozen plots. In the end, the mists that concealed threats also protected Srivijaya's mysteries. The empire, ever vulnerable yet unbroken, emerged with a new understanding. Greatness invites envy, and only constant adaptation holds what tides and time might otherwise reclaim. Chapter 8. Echoes of Decline. The years drift on like a fading tide beneath the hulls of abandoned ships. Srivijaya, once master of the seas, now sits quietly as trade winds change direction. In the harbours that once bustled day and night, the air now hangs thick and still. Empty piers creak in the breeze, as if recalling the laughter and shouts that once filled the wooden docks. The cities that lined the riverbanks stand largely silent now. Their great markets, once overflowing with spices and silk, slowly empty. Foreign merchants choose new ports. The clang of the blacksmith, the calls of fishmongers, fade away beneath the ever-thickening canopy. Srivijaya's people watch as the waters grow quieter, and distant sails no longer arrive with stories or treasures from afar. At the edge of the city, temples and shrines begin surrendering to the jungle. Roots wind through collapsed stone walls, moss spills across carved reliefs. Pillars that once stood proud and bright with pigments stand weathered by rain and time. In the cool silence of morning, dew collects on lotus flowers blooming in forgotten courtyards, as if guarding secrets lost to memory. Allies who once pledged loyalty now seek other powers. Faraway kingdoms, new and ambitious, beckon traders and emissaries away from Srivijaya's embrace. Treaties that held strong for generations slowly unravel. The empire's envoys, finding familiar doors closed, feel the chill of lost friendships. These waning bonds echo through every empty street and abandoned anchorage along the coast. Even the river, Srivijaya's ancient lifeline, appears restless. Previously packed with ships from distant lands, it flows past empty stairs and rotting jetties. The water, once lashed by oars and heavy with commerce, reflects only the drifting clouds now. Fishermen recall tales from their grandparents of bustling days, but find only the gentle splash of a solitary canoe. Within the palace walls, the rulers listen as their advisors recount the empire's lingering problems. Taxes become harder to collect. Stories from distant villages speak of lawlessness. Messengers return with news that is sparse and sorrowful. The Golden Court, once the core of a thriving realm, grows quieter, the halls filled more with memory than with hope. Legends replace the clamour of ordinary days. Where once the empire's triumphs were celebrated under bright banners, whispers now drift through taverns and gatherings, telling of treasures sunken in dark rivers and kings who wandered into the wild. The proud sigil of Srivijaya fades from shields and banners, replaced by uncertainty and longing for what was lost. Jungles press in day by day. Vines crawl over the stones of ancient causeways, hiding paths that once connected the world. Monsoon rains echo off the ruins and abandoned courtyards, their rhythm unfamiliar in what was once a lively metropolis. Egrets nest in the rafters of empty warehouses, undisturbed, becoming the new shepherds of the silent harbour. Those who remain walk the old docks at dusk, feeling the ghosts of prosperity in the warm air. They pause by derelict boats, run their hands across battered hulls. Their footsteps are the only sounds, save for the wind whispering through broken windows. At night, they gather around fires, sharing stories of the mighty empire, so memory endures even as the world moves on. In the end, peace settles over the ruins, not as it once was, but as a gentle silence. Srivijaya slips into legend, woven into the stories told beneath the stars. The jungle reclaims temples, rivers wear down the remnants of stone, but echoes linger in the quiet. In this stillness, the story does not vanish, it simply transforms, waiting for someone to remember. Chapter 9. The Stories Beneath the Surface. Imagine the world beneath the waves, scattered with the silent hulks of ancient ships. Time has embraced these vessels, the wooden beams dissolving into sand, ceramics and bronze gleaming softly under silt. Yet, these are more than just sunken objects. They are echoes from centuries past, hidden testimonies of bustling ports, brave sailors, and the vast network that once connected distant shores. Each shipwreck holds stories in its silence, fragments of porcelain, coins and trade beads whispering of journeys between empires. Some were perhaps laden with spices or silks, others filled with hopes and fears. As we ponder these remnants, we remember Srivijaya's reach stretched far beyond Sumatra, shaping markets and relationships across distant islands. Through current and darkness, these relics offer quiet hints of the lives that moved across these seas. Not all traces of Srivijaya lie underwater. Hidden within dense forests and villages are scattered temple stones and statues. Some stand proud, others toppled and moss-covered. Each carved surface tells of devotion, craftsmanship, and the blending of faiths, Buddhist, Hindu, and local beliefs. These relics are silent witnesses to the ceremonies that once echoed through gilded halls, and to the everyday prayers of those who sought guidance and fortune from the divine. Beyond stone and shipwreck, stories linger in the region's language and lore. Words of navigation, trade, and culture reveal Srivijaya's impact even today. Folk tales passed through generations speak of legendary kings, mythical voyages, and wise queens. In these tales, reality blurs with imagination as the old empire becomes both historical truth and living memory. The language they shared returns in lullabies and proverbs, connecting modern families. Consider the everyday people of Srivijaya fishermen returning at dusk, market vendors haggling over spices, or temple builders shaping stone by hand. Though most left no grand monuments, their lives echo through the region's customs and crafts. The ways they cooked, navigated, celebrated, and mourned are woven into today's traditions. Their ingenuity and resilience fostered a culture shaped by water and trade that endured long after the empire itself faded away. In shadowy mangroves and bustling ports, the past lingers. Imagine storytellers gathering at twilight, spinning tales of lost kingdoms and golden fleets under lantern light. These communal moments kept memories alive, turning distant rulers and daring voyages into lessons for new generations. The empire's spirit survives in the values passed on: hospitality, curiosity, and reverence for the sea. Even as Srivijaya's ships vanished, its ripples continued. Archaeologists work quietly, sifting soil for fragile clusa, broken pot, a coin, a shard of glass. Each find unearths further questions: who made this? How did it travel so far? Each answer reveals another layer beneath the surface, enriching our understanding of Srivijaya as not simply a political power, but a living, evolving community. In these delicate fragments, we glimpse laughter, labour, and loss frozen in time. Today, as we sail past quiet coves or stand on shorelines, it's possible to feel Srivijaya's ghostly presence. The rhythm of waves and hum of boats echo the lives once lived here. Even forgotten ports and sunken cities shape local identity. They remind us that history persists not only in museums, but in the rituals and voices of modern communities. The past quietly shapes every step, every spoken word, and every child's question about the sea. To find the stories beneath the surface takes patience and imagination. It means honouring what is hidden as much as what is found. Srivijaya asks us not to look only at splendid ruins or famous kings, but also at the anonymous weavers, fishers, and children who shaped the world around them. Their daily choices, trades, and dreams are the true fabric of history threads that endure, unseen, but never truly lost beneath the tide. As our journey through Srivijaya concludes, let us remember that every coastline and river still holds secrets. The lives once touched by this maritime giant continue to ripple outward, shaping the stories and spirit of Southeast Asia. When we listen closely to the sea, to old songs, to shared meals, find Srivijaya is never far away. Its legacy is woven quietly into the everyday, inviting us to look deeper and to never stop wondering. Chapter 10. The Sea Remembers. The mists drift slowly across a tranquil ocean, as if hiding secrets too deep for any map to reveal. In these gentle waves rests the memory of Srivijaya, an empire once vibrant and far-reaching, now whispered through ancient currents. Tonight, we pause to reflect, not only on what was lost to time, but on the enduring legacy carried by water itself, ever shifting, ever present. Empires etched their power into stone and earth, but Srivijaya wrote its story across the sea. Where rivers met the salt water, ships glided like silent phantoms bearing spices, gold and silk. The ebb and flow of trade echoed with the voices of countless travellers. But as we journey toward the end, we discover that water, more than land, shapes the course of history with a steady and patient touch. In the soft hush of dawn, the legacy of Srivijaya lingers in the gentle lapping of waves against forgotten shores. The empire's heart may have faded and its treasures scattered, but its true inheritance lies within these restless tides. For every crest and trough, history is carried onward, weaving together distant lives and vanished islands in a tapestry held by memory and water alike. Here, at the meeting place of mist, water, and sky, we are invited to listen. Srivijaya's lesson is wrapped in the seas, ceaseless whispers, reminding us that beneath the visible, the hidden forces of nature and trade continue shaping destinies. The empire's rise and fall are stories not just of ambition or conquest, but of tides, currents, and the silent pull of the ocean's rhythm. As we linger in these tranquil moments, the sea becomes more than backdrop. It is a recorder of echoes, a witness to greatness and loss alike. The memory of Srivijaya, drifting within these waters, gently urges us to consider how much the world's shape its cultures, peoples, and fortunes has always depended on the quiet persistence of the waves. The depths hold truths the surface cannot reveal. Beneath the glimmering light, coral and wreckage intermingle with stories untold. Srivijaya's grandeur may be obscured, but like pearls within an oyster, its wisdom endures in the patience of the sea. We remember that water's embrace can erase, but also preserve, carrying fragments of the past into distant futures yet unseen. In the endless return of tide and surf, we glimpse something eternal. The rhythms that steered Srivijaya still move today's mariners, just as subtle and commanding. From the silent departure of a merchant vessel to the call of seabirds through the mist, history shimmers quietly at the water's edge, waiting to be known and carried onward by new generations of travellers. The dissolution of empires is often mourned, but Srivijaya's lesson is not solely about loss. Instead, it rests in the profound realization that all things are part of greater cycles. The ocean teaches renewal. With every rising sun and falling tide, stories lost may resurface, transformed. And so the empire's spirit remains, neither gone nor forgotten, but dissolved gently into the universe's persistent flow. Tonight, as our tale drifts to an end, we are left with quiet wonder. The sea, more ancient than any kingdom, invites contemplation. What other legacies sleep beneath its shimmering veil? The story of Srivijaya lingers, inviting us to look past boundaries carved in earth and to imagine the unseen depths that cradle the memory of all who came before. Let us leave these mists with hearts attuned to silence, grateful for the lesson that endures on the tide. For in the end, it is the sea that remembers most truly, not through monuments, but through the rhythm of waves, the hush of distant storms, and the eternal promise that history, like water, can never truly disappear. Thank you for journeying through these hidden horizons.